Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a Friday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones, on this 7th of November, 2025. Hope everyone had a good sports Thursday. You're having a better Friday afternoon as the weather is starting to dip up and down the East Coast. We want to remind everyone we are presented and powered by our wonderful friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. And check out the show notes, 20% off your first purchase. BYP20, that's the promo code. Get ready with tea. Three Brooks Bourbon. It is a Three Brooks Bourbon type of day with the weather. And of course, Jersey Shore Breaks and Played Again Sports, two locations in South Jersey. Very easy to get social with me as always on this What the Freak Friday edition of On Cue. At Rich Q on Q on IG and X, TikTok Rich Q. On the mic, busy show. Lloyd Vance going to join us in the 5 o'clock hour. John Bueller from Fansided. We are already in week 10 of the NFL season. A lot has transpired over the last several days. I mean, it's just, when you think about what's going on in the NFL right now, I mean, from ex-players being arrested, from the horrible situation with the Dallas Cowboys to potential burner accounts with the New York Giants and radio hosts and podcasters going back and forth, having a pissing contest on what's going to happen with, Brian Daboll, the head coach of the New York Giants, which I have some thoughts on as well. You get the Eagles coming off a bye. You got issues with Washington, all the madness that's going on in Miami. You have a lot going on in the NFL. And what makes it interesting is that the NFL, as we say it all the time, is indeed this week to week proposition. But ultimately, we got to remember one thing: it's also all about wins and losses. And last night was a perfect example of that. It really was. Last night was probably one of the ugliest football games you'll ever watch in your life. I mean, it was an ugly, ugly football game. Offensively, that game set the NFL back, I would say, 30 plus years between Denver and the Raiders. And look, give Geno Smith a lot of credit. He was playing through injuries and trying to gut it out. Also, again, give Denver a lot of credit because the Denver Broncos, I don't believe, are a great football team. I don't. But they're 8-2. They're 5-0 at home. They've won 7 straight, and all these come from behind victories. They're all come from behind victories during this winning streak. So they at least figure it out in the fourth quarter. Bo Nick struggled last night, and he typically does that. He'll miss some throws. Their ground game is suspect, but their defense is winning them football games. And that's how you win championships in the NFL, with defense. And aside from that Giant game, you're holding the Cowboys to 24, you're holding the Texans to 15, you're holding the Raiders to 7. You held the Titans to 12. You held Cincy to 3. You came back and beat the Eagles, but you held them to 17, the Jets to 10. They have a great defense. So winning ugly in the NFL is okay. It's okay. You can win ugly in the NFL. And that's exactly what they're doing. Some teams win pretty, some teams win ugly. So Denver got the win last night to start things off week 10. You have a very interesting slate, 1 o'clock games, as I mentioned. We'll cap everything off. The Eagles coming off the bye against the Green Bay Packers. I think that's going to be a tough spot for them. Sunday night, Steelers and the Chargers. Jets are back in action this weekend. The Giants are in action this weekend against the Bears, which, again, I've got some thoughts on that. I mean, what's going on over the last several days, if you're a Giant fan, it's like absolute madness going on in the NFL with the Giants, because you've got a situation where it was reported the other day on the Fan that the brass pretty much fired, or was about to fire, or had it set in stone. Brian Daboll was going to get fired after the debacle loss, but, quote, cooler heads prevailed. And then, who tweeted this, who tweeted what, who had the sources. At the end of the day, I really don't give a shit. I don't care. The bottom line is This coach is a dead man walking, period. Now you can start to get into the minutia of it. Who goes to GM, the head coach, do both? Do they stay? He's done. He's done. I mean, I don't even think it's debatable. They can go on a run and win 6, 7 games in a row. He's still going to be done. But now you start to get into this slippery slope as a head coach in the NFL. And this is where you really have to be careful if you're the New York Giants. It's bad right now. It's bad. But the last thing you want to do is have it even get worse. You don't want it to get worse. And what I mean by that is it's okay to lose games. It really is. You know, teams lose. Players sometimes don't perform up to snuff. You have setbacks, you have inconsistencies, but you don't want to get it to the point where this team is not competitive, where they're not even showing up, where they're making those ugly business decisions. Because I believe if they go on the road against a beatable Chicago team and they lose that game 35-6, all bets are off. That man might be done come Monday. And we're going to talk a little more about that today. Same scenario with the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, whether, we're pushing Gurry out the door, whether they're going to fire him, whether he resigns, whether he steps aside, steps down, that team is basically, they're in implode mode. The Miami Dolphins are right now. They're a huge dog at home against the Buffalo Bills. They have shown no signs of life at all this season. Forget about the fact that they beat the hapless Jets. Forget about the fact that they beat a fraud team in the Atlanta Falcons. The quarterback is not playing like a $150, $200 million quarterback. He's had some bad games, back-to-back weeks with 3 picks, bad sacks. They got a bunch of injuries. You got ex-players now that they just traded turning around saying, "Oh my God, that was the greatest day of my life." I mean, what does that say? What does that tell you about a franchise? When you trade players away and they're like, "Oh, I just, I love the vibe. I love this. I love that. I mean, this is where I want to be. This is a great spot for me." It's a major indictment. That's a major, major indictment. When you have a player like Jalen Phillips, the linebacker, who's overjoyed, and I get it. You go from a loser to the defending Super Bowl champs. Makes sense. You're going to be happy. But it just reeks of a deeper issue going on with the Miami Dolphins and that franchise. Then again, we kind of keep the theme going. You got the Cleveland Browns, same issue, same nonsense. The Browns and the Jets play, and that's just going to be an ugly game. That's going to be an ugly game. I mean, who the hell's going to that game in MetLife on Sunday, 1 o'clock CBS? Browns laying 2.5. It's going to be a bad game. It's going to be an ugly game to watch. Horrible game. So now Tillman's back. He's going to play wide receiver. Shador is going to be backup number 2. When is he going to get his reps? When is he going to get his snaps? When is he going to be out on the field? And that coach and that GM, they are fighting for their jobs. And this is when you start to have a conversation too, where it doesn't matter the success you've had. It's always a win now proposition in the NFL. What have you done for me lately? You are measured by wins and losses. And some of these head coaches have not been able to win consistently. They just haven't. And a lot of them are going to be outside looking in. They're done. They're absolutely done. They don't stand a chance. And it's unfortunate. You never want to see guys get fired. You never want to see them, but sometimes you got to make a change. So we got week 10 on the docket. You got so many different storylines. You got the nonsense still going on with ESPN and, YouTube and all this other nonsense. And then you get, the solitary app that's being pawned and pushed by these personalities. That's hilarious. Mark Sanchez out at Fox Sports. You kind of knew that was going to transpire after the stabbing incident in Indianapolis. I mean, just a lot of stuff going on sports-wise in NFL. We'll open it up. We'll get your thoughts on everything. Again, get in on the conversation. John Bueller in the 5 o'clock hour. Lloyd Vance as well in the 5 o'clock hour. We have a lot to dissect. We have a lot to definitely get into as well. We'll open up the comments and see what you guys are thinking. Costa Luca Brazzi, aka Bunker Boys, starts us off. I heard through one of my sources in the DMV that the top brass of your Commanders would be content with one more win this season. Yeah, I don't really believe that to be true. Everyone always believes they have the sources, and then you have no idea what the hell these sources are telling you. No. 4 wins? Really? No. After a team that won what, 10, 11 games last year, made it all the way to the NFC Championship, they've got winnable games, but it's going to be really hard to do without Jaden Daniels. I mean, they've got the Cowboys, they've got the Giants, they've got Miami. There's a couple potential wins right there that gets them to 6 wins, but unfortunately, it's been a down season. It's been a down season with a lot of injuries. I know it's not a Monday. It's a Friday, so I have no problem kind of manning up right now and saying, hey, that was a bold, bad take by me to think that the Washington Commanders were going to get back to the Super Bowl and come back out of the NFC. And again, let's be honest, truth be told, unfortunately, just the injuries. They were rabid by all these injuries. Kevin C chimes in from Jackson. Q, I was hearing about that report too. What do you make of Joe Shane? Is that really a burner account? Yeah, so the report that Kevin's referring to, Brian Daboll was asked earlier today about the reports on the Fan and one of these other podcasters about sources saying that Brian Daboll was going to be fired after the Denver loss. So it was one of the hosts on the Fan who basically went on the air to open the other day, right, with the story. And then a podcaster who also covers the Giants kind of fired back and was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I've got my sources on this first and foremost. Now, again, everything is always the he said, she said in the world of social media, whether someone's digging around or not. To me, it's not about who came up with it first. I mean, there's etiquette involved, yes, but it's more a line of this is not surprising. I came on the air Monday on my show, on my airwaves, and basically said the same thing. Basically, like, how's this guy still have a job? Why is he not fired? I mean, now again, apples and oranges. But I said it wouldn't like it's who got to was it Mara? Basically, why does this man still have a job? Now I get it. The fact that he was going to be fired on the plane after the collapse in Denver, it's a little more attention to detail, right? A little more exact and precise. But I came on the air Monday. How does he still have a job? I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't have a job, if he should be fired at this point. Ultimately, as Kevin alluded to, they have no idea what the hell they're doing. They have no idea what the hell they're doing, to be quite honest with you. And if it gets out of hand, and that's kind of what I was thinking, if it starts to really get out of hand, period, then you got to think of it like this. It's when the message starts to fall on deaf ears. That's it. Look around the NFL. Yes, there's inconsistent play. Yes, you have to deal with injuries. Yes, guys get traded, guys get cut, guys get released. It's a long season, it's a war of attrition. But when you're in November and you're a struggling team and you're not giving effort and it's on film, that's when coaches get fired. It's rare. You go back, the Giants basically, Fossil was dead man walking. He was dead man walking. This is after he pushed all his chips in and they made that run in 2000 and got to Super Bowl and lost to the Ravens 34-7. And they had a couple okay seasons. Then they had the implosion in Candlestick and they choked that game, right? That playoff game, that wild card game. The next year, the writing was on the wall. He basically came out. They said he's gone, and yet, ultimately he coached late in that season, if you remember. I mean, it was awkward. It was awkward. You never want to see a head coach who is going to be fired. That's the problem. Like it just makes for a very awkward. It was awkward. They were 4-12. Their last game of the season, they lost. I mean, they were actually 4-4 after they beat the Jets in overtime, and then they lost 8 straight games. And it was announced, I think it was after the Falcons lost, he was going to get fired, and he still coached a string. It's tough to play if you're a player, and it's tough to coach knowing that you're going to be out of a job. So to kind of Damon's point, right, injuries are killing the league. Injuries always hurt the league, especially when marquee players are going down. Period. Period. We know that. But again, you can't have the message. You can't have it get lost in the sauce. You just can't. And that's the problem. When you have the message lost in the sauce, that's a bad thing. It really is. When players aren't listening, Andy Reid, the last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, they tuned him out. They went up to New York. They lost 42-7. That was it. The handwriting was on the wall. You can be as successful as they come. Everyone has a shelf life. Your Commanders had an old defense. Adam Peters does not appear to be a good NFL GM. Yeah, did you say that last year, though? Come on. Just now you sound like a jackass. Dable should have been fired for not starting Dart and Scadaboo from the jump. Again, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. They were not going to start Dart until Andrew Thomas was back. I already said that. Period. I already said that. Like, I don't get it. What are you not paying attention to? Like, what are you not paying attention to? They were not, I said this multiple times on the air on the record. You're not going to see the kid until Andrew Thomas is good to go to solidify the line. Period. Goofball, get out of here with the nonsense. Worry about the friggin' Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night, who might get smoked by the Packers, by the way. Yeah, I am sparring before the broadcast. It was cold outside. I don't know what you want me to say. Yeah, I was. And I'm going to be sparring on the air, too. Just keep it up. Keep it up, goofballs. Keep it up. Jimmy J, Tom's River Chimes and Q. I remember that season. It was ugly. They lost, I think you said 6 or 7 in a row. They weren't even competitive. I thought the turning point of that season is when they absolutely got hammered by the Eagles. Yeah, they were 4-6. They lost 28-10. No show. But you decide at that moment if you're getting rid of the head coach. And I believe Miami's made up their mind what they're going to do with Mike McDaniel. I believe Cleveland's made up their mind what they're going to do with Stefanski. I also believe the Giants have made up their mind what they're going to do with Brian Daboll. And the more I think about it, just because a GM and a head coach come together on the same plate, little side dish, it doesn't mean that they're meant to work together going forward, if that makes sense. So you had a package deal with Daboll and Shane. It doesn't necessarily equate to, wait a second, if you fire one, you got to fire the other. No. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. And the team they're playing, believe it or not, Chicago Bears, think about this for a minute. Think about this. Draw the parallels. This is why in the NFL, again, this is why in the NFL, you can turn it around quickly. Quickly. The Bears last year struggled. They had the horrible loss against the Washington Commanders. The Commanders went this way, and the Bears went that way. What did the Bears do? They fired their head coach. They hired their head coach and their GM together, Poles and Eberflus. They fired Matt Eberflus. They kept Ryan Poles, even gave him a contract extension, hired a new coach in Ben Johnson. You following me? And now you're starting to see not a great team, but they're 5-3. And the games they lost last year, the real bad games, they've kind of turned and flipped the script. And they won games that you'd be like, they have no business winning these games, i.e. on the road against the Raiders, i.e. on the road against the Commanders, i.e. on the road against Cincinnati. And they're 5-3. It's not pretty. But point being is, and young quarterback. Look at the Giants. Young quarterback, head coach, not the right fit. Do you salvage the GM because of the draft pick, even though a lot of people we know but the video have, you want them, you take them. You want some stability. And I think that's, the more I think about this, I look at this and say, you still want some continuity, and maybe that saves Joe Shane's job. No, a spike pick comes at 5:45. How's Eberflus's D in Dallas? I don't understand. Are you not listening to what I'm saying? Or are you just blindly commenting in today? Goes to Luca Brazzi. Seriously, are you just blindly commenting in? I'm just drawing parallels. No one said Eberflus was a good head coach. We know the D in Dallas stinks. Are you just randomly picking apart tidbits of what I'm friggin' saying and commenting on that? You're like that guy when you write a question in a text and you respond and you don't even answer what the question was. Hey man, what are you doing later? You want to go grab a beer? Response from the ghost of Luca Brazzi. Boy, it's sure cold out today. Get your head out of your ass on a Friday. What the frig? Seriously, wake up. Wake up. Get with the program, will you? Follow along. Do I need to like pick it up, pick it down so you can, grab it? Come on. What are we doing here? My point is, you don't need to fire the GM and the head coach at the same time. I think there's something that can be salvageable. I'm not the biggest Shane fan, but again, here we go. El Jefe chimes in. Hey, Q, I'm going to take a stab at this. Did you hear that Fox got rid of Sanchez? Haha, very funny. I mean, you guys are writing the jokes today on a Friday, right? That's not a surprise. Sanchez is out. This whole, by the way, this whole ESPN bet and the YouTube and the ESPN going back and forth and the personalities trying to shill and push. Oh my God, shut the frig up already. It's so annoying. I was reading up, and I don't know if you guys saw this regarding that app for the solitary, right? Apparently it was like AI driven, never had an opportunity to win. It was like rigged. How about that? Mina Kimes, holier than now. Solitary Stephen A, screaming above all else, all odds, everyone. Promoting a cash app, a solitary cash app that was rigged. ESPN, RSPN, little rat ship. Just again, just turning into a joke. The room reading ability is diminishing. It's not even that, madman. It was never there. I got to call it the way it is. I mean, what do you bring into the table here, Luca? Seriously, what do you bring into the table? It's not even room reading. We all have that friend. We text something. We text something specific. Hey, pick you up at 6. Their response should be, sounds good. Looking forward to it. Hey, let's make it 6:30. I'm running a little late. Not pick you up at 6 and then the response is, hey, there's a sale at Penny's. Like, what are we doing? Ghost of Luca Brazzi needs to just either have a layup, have a get ready with tea, maybe a Three Brooks bourbon, something, something, something. It's not even spicy. It's cold outside, man. I'm just telling you the way it is. That's it. Fast approach at 5 o'clock. That's all I'm saying. What do we got here? Franchise chiming in. Q, what do you think of my flock this weekend? Ravens are going to make a run. Lloyd and I dropped a new edition of BYP. It's already out wherever you get your pod. And it's up on the YouTube channel. Ravens are about to make a run, man. They have a very manageable schedule going forward. They're 3-6. They're not out of it yet in the AFC North. They've got some winnable games. They get through the Vikings. They got Cleveland, the Jets, Cincinnati, the Steelers, Cincinnati. Winnable, winnable, winnable games. And I can't, a couple of the Ravens fans, again, I guess, Screaming A said that Lamar's under pressure to win the Super Bowl. It's an idiotic comment. And I'm going to tell you why. It's an asinine comment. You're talking about a quarterback that's played 5 games this season. You're talking about a team that has a horrible defense. It can't all be on him. And again, if they were 6-3, you make that comment. Not when you're 3-5, 3-6. It's an asinine comment to make. It's just not accurate. I'll give you the quarterbacks right now that are under pressure to win a Super Bowl. And it's probably 2 or 3 of them. Jared Goff, Like eventually, Detroit Lions are going to have to sit there and say, if not when, if not now, when with Jared Goff. I think there's pressure for Detroit to try to get home field advantage because they want those games in Detroit. They don't want to have to go in a nasty environment on the road in January, but there's pressure on Jared Goff in Detroit. Well, something they've never done and then win it. That's a quarterback that's got pressure on him. Josh Allen has pressure on him to not even get to the AFC Championship, get to the Super Bowl, and win it for Buffalo. Lamar Jackson, I'm kind of giving a free pass because their defense has been horrendous and he's been injured all season. And they're 3-6. So you're asking him now to go on this ridiculous run. I mean, come on. That's not realistic. You're eventually going to lose a game. Do I think they can be a playoff team? Yeah. When I say I believe they can go on a run and make it competitive and maybe sneak in as a wild card, I believe that. But once you get in, it's pretty much, one and done. You lose the game, your season's over. If they can afford to trip up going forward. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. Denver, what is that? Denver 6? Q, I have no idea what the hell's going on with the Denver offense. I have no idea. Is it possible that Sean Payton doesn't trust Bo Nix? Because I saw they had possessions last night, especially after the block punt, the turnovers, and they were in the red zone. They couldn't even punch it in. Is he afraid to let this kid throw the football? And I told you this, I'm a Bo Nix fan, but I'm starting to see regressions, and that's not a good thing. Year 1 to year 2, you see that jump. Well, guess what? He's thrown 6 or 7 picks. He's had some poor decisions. I was driving home, and I caught late third, fourth. But the radio broadcast was saying how, at times he was basically like, lifting his lead foot, jumping up, throwing. I mean, I remember when Carson Wentz used to do that nonsense, not really get anything on the ball. Like Carson Wentz used to jump up as he's releasing the pass. I never got it. It made no sense. You wrap him up, and he's going to get hit. But Bo Nix, I don't know what's going on with this offense. Their defense is playing lights out, but you're also not going to be able to get away with having no offense against, say, a Buffalo or a Baltimore or a Kansas City, an Indianapolis. The Chargers come playoff time. They can score. They can move the football. So Denver, they are what their record is. And you can't take that away from them. They are what their record is. But they don't appear to be this juggernaut. They don't. And Sean Payton, some of the play call, would they run a trick play last night? They ran like a trick play. What was it? A halfback option? They tried to get cute. I don't get it. You don't do that in the third quarter of a football game. It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know where Sean Payton's head's at. They need to run the ball better. But listen, they've shown you one thing. All these games that they've won during this winning streak, they've all come from behind. And that's got to count for something. Right? Aside from the Cincinnati game, unless they were down 3-0 early on in that one. They beat them 28-3. Eagles, Jets, Giants, right? I think they were behind early in Denver. I'd have to double check. I'm sorry, against Cowboys. Texans behind, last night behind. They trailed in these games. So that's got to account for something, does it not? Sup Peaks working, so can't participate, but always hear Go Jags. Duval. Hey, new phone, who it is, a.k.a. He 12 Man, a.k.a. Heisman, a.k.a. Vince, checking in with his Jacksonville squad. I don't like that game for you this weekend, brother. On the road, Jacksonville against the Texans. I think this weekend you're going to see some teams. So New England goes on the road against Tampa Bay. You got a Todd Bowles defense. You got a young quarterback in Drake May. Tampa can get to the quarterback. I love Drake May. I think he's definitely a dark horse MVP candidate. Put him in the conversation. The kid's playing fantastic football. But this is a tough spot for the Patriots because Tampa has a pretty good run defense as well. And, Baker's kind of that X factor, especially late in games, making plays. That's a tough game for New England. The other game that I'm kind of looking at, I'm like, okay, wait a second. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. The Rams go on the road to play San Francisco. And I told you beginning of the season, the 49ers will win their 10 plus games. They pulled away from the Giants. They tripped up against the Texans. But this is a team right now. They are 6-3. They already played the Rams earlier this season, and because of Sean McVay and his goofiness, they were able to win a game that they had no business winning. After the Rams, San Francisco has Arizona, no Murray, Panthers, just very inconsistent, trying to win, Cleveland, and the Titans. If they beat the Rams, listen, they're going to get their 10, 11 wins. They're going to be a playoff team, period. I mean, that would be a huge win against the Rams, a team you already beat. But then you have very winnable games. You close out the season against the Colts, tricky spot, the Bears, and then Seattle. So right now, you look at the Rams in the NFC, I'm sorry, you look at the 49ers in the NFC West. I would not overlook the 49ers to win that division. I'm just saying, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Now, you want to tell me that you don't like them this weekend? That's fair. That's fair. Mac Jones, Matthew Stafford. I think Stafford's going to pick apart that secondary. I think Stafford's going to have a big game. I get it. I get it. But it's a divisional game. They're always quirky, goofy games. Divisional games, you got the familiarity. These teams played before earlier in the season. 4.5. Again, dogs, they're at home. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be a blowout win for the Rams. If you want to go by recency bias and look what Stafford just did against the Saints, so be it. Throwing 4 or 5 touchdown passes and a 24-point win, fine. But point is, we talked about all these teams, how it was all jumbled up in the NFC, right? It's jumbled up. We know one team's coming out of the NFC East. You might as well just bookmark it right now. The Eagles, congratulations, NFC East champs. But then you got the NFC North, Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago. Then you got the NFC South, Tampa Bay trying to pull away from Carolina. Let's say Tampa wins that division. Then you got the NFC West. So you might get 2 to 3 teams out of the West and or the North. You're not getting 2 coming out of the East, and you're not getting 2 coming out of the South. So you got 2 right there, and then do the math. All these games going forward right now are very, very important. And also, too, do not overlook the fact that the 49ers are 6-1 in the conference. Very good conference record for the 49ers. So do not discount that. That's all I'm saying. But so many goofy things went on this weekend or this week in the NFL. In baseball, right? I mean, we kind of put a bow on the World Series. I thought it was a ridiculous World Series. The NBA is the NBA. We haven't heard much regarding the betting scandal of late, right? Have we not? And then, as I mentioned, you've got the NFL, which it's just a week-to-week proposition. That's all it is. It's a week-to-week proposition. It really is. You can't figure this league out. You can't. 2 or 3 good teams, then the rest, I would have to say, but it's interesting, week 10. All right, with that, we welcome in our good friend from Fansided, John Bueller, kind enough to join us. All right, we've got week 10 among us, my friend. It started with a doozy last night. If you played the over, I feel bad for you. 10-7 Denver with a win. Let me start by asking you this. Denver's defense is really, really good. Their offense is not. They're not going to be able to get away with those offensive efforts against the top tier teams going forward in the AFC. But I watch a game like that and I say, okay, play calling not good, or is the head coach reluctant to go and let Bo Nix, the young quarterback, go out and just make some plays and sling it?
Denver can be such a frustrating watch sometimes, but what I probably say here more so than anything is, like, I think it's all it's become apparent this is all about Sean Payton and his ego versus Bo Nix. I don't necessarily think that he wants to show anybody who's worth a damn what you can do. The Raiders are awful. The Raiders are pitiful.
Yeah.
Like, I thought Geno Smith would be a lot better than this. I mean, he's relatively my age, and he looks completely shot right now. The Pete Carroll hiring was a disaster, and now you're just kind of wondering, like, where do you even go from here if you're the Raiders? The Broncos, I believe, are 8-2. Feels kind of like a little inflated, but they found ways to win ugly, and I'll give them that.
Well, that's it, right? And they're coming from behind. They're figuring out a way in the fourth quarter. So you mentioned that hire, right, by the Raiders with Pete Carroll, and I'm wondering. Look, he's a youthful guy, but do you think he's kind of looking around and you know some buyer's remorse with that decision? I mean, he wanted to get back. I mean, obviously, didn't want to stay away from coaching. Had a great run with Seattle. It's a different animal with the Raiders. I mean, it's hard to figure out where they're going, what they're building, right? Because they have major issues, and one of them happens to be under center, the quarterback spot. So, do you look at that situation and say, "Man, it's not going to end well for Pete Carroll"?
This is what he signed up for. Arguably one of the 4, 6, 8 most dysfunctional franchises in the NFL. I mean, yes, he's very youthful, and I'm not going to deny him an opportunity to go, make some money and coach. He loves coaching, but like it ran its course. It got kind of weird. Not necessarily that it got ugly there in Seattle towards the end, but like the ship had sailed on him. And one thing that always kind of intrigued me is I believe he is one season away from being eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame. Like, you need to have 10 seasons. Like, could you just gone somewhere else? Like, could you have gone to coach the New Mexico Lobos, get them to like an 8-4 season, and then you're in the Hall of Fame for both college with what you did at USC and
Yeah.
then what you did at the NFL with Seattle? I thought this was a completely just he didn't think this through at all. And maybe Tom Brady said like, "Oh, come here," and this is just a disaster.
Sometimes it doesn't end well when these guys have success either in college then the pros and go back to college and try to get back to the pros. I mean, listen, look at Belichick trying his hand in college, right? And already you're starting to hear the connection Giants, Giants, Giants. Again, it's a conversation for another day. I saw that Schefter was reporting that Mac Jones is going to start again for the 49ers. I was talking a little bit about that 49ers and that Rams game. I think the NFC West is still up for grabs along with the NFC North. Do you see three teams coming out of any of those divisions respectively to make the playoffs?
I figure you kind of have to because I think I was listening to you beforehand. It's probably the Eagles division to lose in the NFC East. Cowboys can't be trusted. The Commanders have really hit a snag here. The Giants are like a year away from being a year away. And then the South, my Falcons are a horribly coached team. Carolina is ascending. Maybe they'll catch fire and challenge Tampa, but like you are looking at the NFC West potentially getting 3 in there. Arizona, my pick to win, it's been awful, but Seattle's surprised. The Rams are still good, and the 49ers are they are what they are. I'm not necessarily sure about that in the NFC North because I don't trust the Bears, but the Lions and the Packers have proven to have staying power. So I think that those divisions are probably going to get multiple in there. In that case, you're probably going to get 3 out of one of them, right?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up the Cardinals for a second because I said earlier in the week, stick with Brissett, and Gannon kind of walked it back and then decided we're going to stick with Brissett. And then, oh, by the way, Murray's on the IR. Um, has he played his last snap
Yeah,
with Arizona?
I think so. I think that's really been the issue, I think, with Arizona more than anything. I think there's things to like about Gannon. There's things to like about Austin Ford as the GM, but like you got to trust a very mercurial quarterback who's not really a leader, and you can't really take over in a division where you have 3 really strong leaders. I mean, Stafford, Darnold's a strong leader, and it doesn't matter if it's Purdy or Jones; they have leadership traits. Whereas I think Murray is just kind of like Call of Duty's out. I'm playing video games. Maybe he should just go play baseball at this point.
Listen, and the other knock, and it's just a factual knock, is his size.
Yeah.
And Brissett at least was, slinging the ball, throwing it downfield, distributing the ball as well, kind of raising the level of those offensive weapons. I really haven't seen Murray do that. I mean, look, I thought they were going to be a dark horse playoff team. I also thought Carolina, that we've talked about a lot, was going to be a dark horse playoff team. One team that it seems as though you were a little high on more than I was, not the Colts, but New England and Drake May this season. Kind of same boat, right? 7-2, young quarterback, making the jump, bringing in the right head coach. It's kind of what some of these other good teams have been able to do in the past in these two franchises. And they got through the stench of getting rid of firing Bill Belichick, the horrible hire, and Gerard Mayo. And now, obviously, they found their head coach and they've certainly found their quarterback.
They might as well contract the Titans at this point. Like, how can you possibly let Mike Vrabel leave Nashville? This was the best candidate out there for 2 years. The Falcons couldn't hire him because of the Arthur Smith of it all, even though his son played for the team. I knew that when the Patriots got him, this was going to work very quickly. I thought they were about a 10-7 team this year. They still might be that. They might be better
Right.
than that. But when you have a true alpha male, a guy who is, who started in college, started in the NFL, good defensive tactician, really good with putting good assistants around him, empowering people, like he's a guy that everybody can lead to. And this is kind of, he's giving off vibes, not necessarily what made Belichick so special, but there's certain things there that Vrabel does that I don't necessarily think that people want to quantify and say that he is, because he's like just a Ohio meathead. He's really good, and he won that game over Atlanta while Raheem Morris just sat there with his hands in his pockets. Frustrated me to no end.
The other thing, too, is I think when you have players that start to take on your personality,
Yeah.
um, it's it's huge, and I'm starting to see that, right? Some of these players take their the traits from their head coach, and then also it can work as a detriment. Like, look at the mess in Miami now when you have former players or players that were recently traded just saying, "Hey, it was the greatest day of my life." Now, I asked you if Kyler Murray has taken his last snap as Arizona. I asked you the same question, different quarterback, different state. Tua. I mean, is this a spot this weekend where if he stinks up the joint, he's benched, and then Miami decides, you know what, or McDaniel decides, sorry, man, it's just not working. I got to get some wins here, and here we go. That's the last of Tua in a Miami Dolphins uniform, because I think they're going to get absolutely toasted by the Bills. I really do.
I would probably say so. Hopefully, I'm not muted here. The dog's not behaving right now. She's
No,
doing
you're
all sorts.
listen. Mine's thank God she's taking a nice little power nap. You're good.
Nah, I told her to behave and she didn't listen today. But I'm like one of the biggest Tua critics out there. The guy's not a leader. The guy's not smart. The guy's small. The guy is not a good teammate. For as long as he's with the Dolphins, it's a dead franchise. And if they stink it up, then you gotta cut ties. I don't really care what the amount is. It's so awful.
uh, so I mentioned Murray and Tua, and the reason I bring it up is because I don't think Aaron Glenn he's going to make it out of this season. I think it's max 2 years,
I think so
and
too.
I'm going to tell you why. They they constructed the coaching staff extremely. It's poor. Now you have a scenario where you make some trades and you acquire capital, so you can be a little more creative. They're going to need a quarterback,
Yes.
right? So you've got the Murrays out there, maybe a reclamation project. They've seen enough with Tua playing them in the AFC East. You got Burrow, who's been injured like 100 times in his career, and maybe he's thinking it's never going to happen with Cincinnati. They're cheap, dysfunctional franchise, no defense. You got Herbert with the Chargers. I mean, if not, now, when? Let's talk about the Jets for a moment. The moves they made, getting rid of Williams, also Sauce Gardner, I gave them A plus. I thought they fleeced Indianapolis, and I thought they fleeced the Dallas Cowboys. Do you believe right now they've set up where they have enough draft capital to be an appealing, a quick rebuild, if you will? And do you agree with me that Aaron Glenn pretty much 2 years max with the Jets?
I think so because the Woody Johnson of it all. I'm not the biggest fan of the OC there. I think it's Ingstrand. I think's the name there in New York, if I'm not mistaken. But what I would say with the by unloading, Quinn Williams and Sauce Gardner, you do free up capital, you free up flexibility. I don't think Quinn Williams is a winning player. I just don't think that that's really going to help Gardner kind of caught me by surprise a little bit because he is a massive talent and everything like
Well,
that.
and they just signed him to a contract extension
Yeah,
5 months
yeah.
ago. Well, what
Like
again, what does that tell you?
Daramuji's trying to figure it out and he doesn't know what he's doing. What I would say if I were the Jets is like you're going to be awful. You're going to be picking one or two. You figure out what quarterback you want. I would venture to guess. I read something somewhere that there's a belief that Fernando Mendoza is the next Jared Goff, who was the guy who had a ton of success in Detroit.
Saw him on the mock drafts.
Mhm.
Yep, I pulled that up.
Mendoza's probably my pick to win the Heisman, but like he could also go Peyton Manning. Like, why do I want to go play for the Jets? I've got another year of eligibility. Also, my brother is on the team, and I'm having a blast playing there for Coach Sig in Bloomington. But I would look at a quarterback, but I would also try to find the right stopgap for you. I just I don't know if Murray is the guy. I don't know if Two is the guy. I don't really know where you kind of go in that direction. Maybe you bring Joe Flacco in for like a year and then bridge to this guy.
You know what though? They can't do that. I'm going to tell you why. Because they just did it.
Yeah.
They went low risk, high reward, right? With Justin Fields. And the owner came out and basically said he stunk. Now, Man says, Q, I don't know. They might start over with new coach and getting this draft capital. I, I was told the other day that Glenn gets one more year. And I was told from a pretty reliable source that has pretty good ties. I'd maintain if it's really bad, you fire him after a year, but then there's no continuity. Like it's got to be like Urban Meyer-ish bad, Joe Judge-ish, where it's just like, what the hell are we doing? So to Man's point, I think he brings up a valid point because of the draft capital. That you might bring in a proven head coach or commodity that knows and a GM. I don't mind the GM. I think those moves were bold to get that capital. But point is, you might bring in a head coach, a commodity head coach that's had experience that knows exactly what to do with that capital, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're all talking about like continuity here. I kind of feel
Yep.
like, you make your job untenable. You become the Titans. Nobody in the right mind is going to want to work there. I will say though, Darren Mushi's best friend at San Diego State was Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach. I'm not a big Quezzy fan at all. If the Vikings don't make the playoff, I think he may have to wear it. Maybe Mushi's like, I'm out. I'm going to go somewhere else potentially. But like, I do think that Glenn had a lot of respect, coming from the Sean Payton coaching tree under Dan Campbell. I think he also he played a kind of Pro Bowl team for the Jets. Like they were good when he was there. So like,
Yeah, but you know what his problem is? He's to Man's point. Not only is in over his head. Again, it's all about the structure of the coaching staff, and the head coach is responsible for doing that. And again, he sits there during these press conferences. I'm going to give you the exact quote that was sent to me. This is the exact quote. It was, hold on one second. I wish I can say, hold on, here it is. I wish I can tell them to cut it out. Woody doesn't know sports, let alone football. Um, and then regarding Aaron Glenn, I understand why he doesn't disclose, but he needs to say it and stop with because I don't want to. It's childlike. Like that's like he's not. You're going through these pressures, and it's not a good thing. It's just not.
if you're going to take the Jets job, you know that every single sentence and pause word and punctuation you use, everything in the media, you're going to be crucified alive, good or bad, with whatever you say. This is the nation of the job. This is you can't hide somewhere. You're not coaching in Cincinnati. You're not coaching in God, I don't even know. You're not even coaching in like what I think Kansas City when they were not good.
Right.
Like this is a major market team, and you gotta be better than this. And also, like you talk childlike, I'm like the two coaches who wear capris don't win games except against the Falcons. Maybe Aaron Glenn gets a win over my team. Maybe I think that might happen in a couple of weeks.
Hey, listen, I mean, they might win up. They might wind up with more wins uh, than my Giants. And there were these reports coming out that they pretty much were going to fire Dable after the Denver loss, uh, which again I had no problem with. Do you believe if a GM and a head coach come over as a package deal, then they should leave as a package deal? Meaning, well, if you're going to fire one, you got to fire the other.
I believe in clean breaks. However, I also believe that a GM can convince the ownership that he deserves a second opportunity, a second pairing. So that I mean, I'll take Atlanta for example. You bring in Thomas Dimitroff and Mike Smith together, you have a lot of success, and then Smitty didn't work out. You bring in Dan Quinn, and once it failed Dan Quinn, then they were both gone. So maybe, but because you had Shane and Dable both go from Buffalo and both have Carolina, maybe not Carolina ties, but like Buffalo, Carolina, whatever ties you have with that thing. Like the fact that you're so closely aligned, if it doesn't work out, maybe you do. If you move on from one, you move on from the other here. But like again, a head coach is probably more expendable than a GM because again,
Yeah.
a GM only gets really one shot at this, whereas head
Yep.
coach may get one or two or maybe three.
Yeah. Listen, I think he's a dead man walking. I was never a fan of the hire. I don't know the man personally. He could be a great guy. I just don't think he's qualified to be a head coach. And again, I'm not the biggest Joe Shane fan, but where Joe Shane sits there, well, even though maybe I didn't want Dart, at the end of the day, when you go to Wikipedia and you look at giant draft picks and you see who the GM was attached, he's attached to Dart. And Dart looks
Yeah,
like he's going to be a franchise quarterback, whether he wanted to really make the pick or not. That's the problem. You're going to get it in Miami. You're going to get it in Cleveland, right? You're going to get it with the Giants, maybe in the Jets in another year. I want to ask you this before I let you get out of here, a couple more with you. Um, those are kind of the coaches we've talked ad nauseum, but Harbaugh in Baltimore, Taylor in Cincinnati. Harbaugh's been around a long
yeah.
time. So when do we start having this conversation, or does he basically still have an extended shelf life because they won a Super Bowl?
It's tough to say. He's been there since '08, and honestly, it's gotten really stale. He's kind of been like a likable guy, certainly more so than his younger brother. But it's also he's a special teams guy, which allows him to communicate to everybody on the team, which is why he's had staying power. But he's kind of whiffed on a bunch of coordinators over and over. Like, I mean, Monken was good until this year, and then you kind of wonder what's going on with or on defense and everything like that. I think like Baltimore has a standard. Baltimore is just has a lot of pride. Like this is when you think of Baltimore, you think of this as a top like four
Yep.
well-run organization in the NFL, and they've not done that. And you've effectively wasted Lamar Jackson's prime because you don't have there's just something missing. You don't have an Andy Reid saying like, okay, the play is broken down. Okay, Patrick, come over here. I'm going to draw something up on a whiteboard, and here's how we're going to do it and stop them. I think when you have a head coach in the NFL that's not an X's and O's guys, there's always a limitation, and this is what's happened there.
And then lastly, before I let you get out of here, right now, NFL MVP.
Still, I mean, like until proven otherwise, give it to maybe I don't know. Jonathan Taylor's fun. There hasn't really been a quarterback that's really emerged for
Separated
me.
himself.
That could come. And I think that we'll see that probably by the end of the month, early December. I would say like trying to think who else would be like a really strong candidate there. Like I thought, if the Rams keep going, maybe Stafford can do it. Um, they're going to be the whole like again, Mahomes and the Chiefs have played a lot better, and I think the fact that people have gotten the narrative that like the Chiefs are kind of lacking talent across the board, that maybe he could get that. And honestly, like he's the type of player that like he's going to retire with like 3 to 4 MVPs, if you
Yeah.
will. And I'm not against that. I think that this has kind of been a joyless slog of a season there for the Chiefs, and I don't think they're going to come out of the AFC, but he's playing at a high enough level to counterbalance a lot of their issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I agree with that. I don't think they're coming out of the AFC as well. All right. What you got cooking this weekend? I know you probably loaded up a lot of college football content. Yes.
Yeah, I got the ultimate trap game there for Georgia versus the other
Mississippi
Bulldogs,
State.
Mississippi State. Don't bet on that line. Bet on Georgia in the second half. I think it's gone up to 9.5. That's a
Yes.
little frightening there. You got some teams that are potentially on fraud watch. Oregon needs to actually beat somebody good. They're playing Iowa, and I think
Yep.
Iowa's kind of feisty. Keep
Six
an
and a
eye
half.
keep an eye on LSU, Alabama. Alabama's been playing with fire, but they can't run the football. LSU's got nothing to lose after firing Brian Kelly. Yeah, there's some fun games out there, and then obviously the NFL. Looking forward to the 9:30 Germany game as well. Talked about it on the pods. Blog and Dirty is now twice a week. I do a post game show and I do a kind of a preview show on Wednesdays. That's when we can do it. So
I can't believe you're getting up early for that 9:30 slot with your Falcons against the Colts. I mean,
uh,
I get it. Well, 9:30 is not early, but
I'll be going. I'll get like 6 hours of sleep. The dog is going to wake me up anyway. It doesn't matter, man.
oh man. All right. Well, yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Falcons getting 6.5 over there in Berlin, Germany.
Yeah,
All right, brother.
Take the Colts.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. But I do like your thoughts on college football too with some of those plays. We'll look out for it as well as the shows on YouTube. Great stuff, everyone. Of course, give John a follow on all social media. We'll put that up throughout the show as well. Great stuff, man. I always appreciate a couple moments. Have a good Friday and enjoy the weekend, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Do the same. Take care. Same time next week.
All right, you got it. There you have it. My guy, John Beeler. All right, quick time out. By the way, I saw that Madman said, random side note, the Mickey Q hat is bothering me. Well, you know what? I don't know what to tell you. It's cold out there. You know, that's what it is. All right, we got a lot of comments coming in. Got to get to them on the other side. All right, welcome back. Got about 30 to play with on a What the Frig Friday. By the way, a lot of stuff maybe say What the Frig this Friday or What the Frig Friday this week in the world of sports. I mean, that story coming out of Dallas is really sad, really just awful, awful, awful. You know, I know the NFL, not all the details. I mean, you go through the police reports. You watch that game against Arizona, the block punt, the kid recovers it for a touchdown, and then a couple days later, uh, shoots himself, commits suicide. Really, just um, I said this to Lloyd during Back Your Play, and I was very sensitive in this regard, involving Marshawn Nealon, that it's probably it's probably a really good thing that the Cowboys don't play this week because I don't know how a team is able to get up for a game like that. I really don't. I mean, you remember when the Kansas City um, linebacker, remember Jovan Belcher? Remember, he committed suicide. He did it in the parking lot in the facility. Just it's unfortunate. It really is. I mean, kid was a baby, 24 years of age, and you just feel, man, you just feel for his family. His I think his girlfriend was pregnant too. Never a good thing. Mark and Wyfer chimes in. Q, always enjoying the show. I know you just mentioned the NBA gambling scandal. Did you hear about the former college basketball players taking some bribes and rigging games? I did. I did. Six college basketball players manipulated games and shared information with bettors. I'm telling you, this is what the NCAA announced today. It's what they announced today. So again, we always want to turn this blind eye. Man, it is going to be a major, major, major issue. And allowing these kids now to bet, come on. You're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble. You really are. It's not going to end well. It really isn't. You're opening up such a can of worms with this nonsense. So you had six college players manipulated games, sharing information with bettors, violations that carry consequences, permanent ineligibility. Cadavius Hunter, Daquan Scott, Jamon Vincent, Donovan Sanders, Alvin Steddick, Chetam BJ Freeman, they are no longer enrolled at their previous schools. Hunter, Short, and Vincent played for the University of New Orleans. Sanders and Stradrick were enrolled at Mississippi Valley. Freeman was a member of Arizona State. Go figure, Arizona State, right? I mean, Arizona State back in the day, the point shaving. Incident involved three players in New Orleans. First came to light in February after the NCAA enforcement staff approached the school, which reported receiving a tip about potential game manipulation involving players on the men's basketball team. The tip noted that another student athlete overheard the three players talking about a third party placing a bet for them on their game against McNeese State, December 28th, 2024. Privateers lost that game 86-81. The hits keep coming when it comes to gambling in the world of sports. It just can't make this stuff up. You can't. Everything's on film. It's like the movie Blue Chips. You're gonna find out. You're gonna find out. And if you're providing information to others and they're also placing bets, you're just as culpable. I don't know why everyone thinks we're turning a blind eye here. No one's turning a blind eye. The NBA made a major mistake by trying to be this forward-thinking league and getting involved with gambling. And now it's bit them in the ass big time. NCAA is doing the same exact thing. The same exact thing, now allowing these student athletes to bet and allow sports betting. They're doing the same exact thing. And it's a bad look all around. It really is. These kids, NIL deals, you're making a couple $100,000. I mean, there's like, they want to double, triple, quadruple that kind of money. You're giving 19, 20, 21-year-old kids life-changing money like that, and you think they're going to make sound decision? Come on, stop. Well, we know who always makes sound decisions. How about that segue? My guy, Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, also co-host of Back Your Play. A new episode dropped. By the way, I'm getting killed from my Mickey from Rocky snow hat. I said it's a little cold. It's a little hot toddy weather, is it not?
Yeah, it's a little chilly out here and it's windy, but you ain't been hungry since you won that title.
Look at this, by the way. How about this shot? Let me pull it. This is a direct shot at me. Lose the hat, bring back the collared shirts and some class. Wow. I mean, let me tell you something. That's a shot. I'll tell you this, goes to Luca Brasi, keeps it up. He's going to be swimming with the fishes, and that's a ban. That's a 5-minute ban on a Friday. So we are talking a lot of NFL. How do you look at Denver after last night? Just an ugly win, great defense, but yet they find a way to win. And ultimately, that's kind of all that matters in the NFL. Or do you think offensively, their problems are deeper?
Yeah, the Broncos, that was ugly game, Q. It was tough watching. They do have J.K. Dobbins and running the football. Harvey's coming along. Ingram at the tight end position. And I do like Sutton and the other receivers there. But yeah, something's amiss with that offense. The offensive line has a pretty good group up front. They have a couple Pro Bowlers, but they had an injury last night, and I think that kind of affected them from there. But in terms of blocking Max Crosby, but they have to get better. They keep winning all these close games, Q. They're 8-2, but you have to start wondering, when's that luck going to run out? They have a big game coming against Kansas City, and I think they're going to test them in terms of both sides of the football. So good win, but yeah, there's question marks there.
You think the head coach has confidence in the quarterback to let him throw it? Talking about Peyton and Nix.
I think he does, but Sean Payton, he's kind of conservative at heart. He's okay with kind of punting the football and playing good defense, and you can't blame him leaning on that defense. They have 46 sacks to lead the National Football League, and they're giving him short fields. But yeah, you wonder if Bo Nix is put in a situation where he has to drive this team from behind, in a big game, if he's really going to be able to do it. So we may have to wait to the playoffs to get our answer, but yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting game coming up against Chiefs.
Who's got more pressure on them to take their team deep into playoffs? You look at Josh Allen on Buffalo, Justin Herbert with the Chargers, Jared Goff with Detroit. I kind of dismiss Lamar Jackson because he's been injured, and that's a team that's got to dig out of a hole, right? And they have a horrible defense. But, give me a quarterback or two where you kind of look at it and you say right now, all right, we're in week 10. You've got favorable games, favorable schedule going forward. This is a chance to kind of separate yourself, but there's pressure still to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so I mean, Josh Allen obviously being the defending MVP, and there's high expectations for that Bills team. Everybody expected them to finally break through and get to the Super Bowl, but he's had some bad games, particularly against the Falcons. That was an ugly game, and they seem to turn this thing around with 2 straight wins. But he's got to spread the football around. Let's face it, the tight end's probably his best playmaker in offense, other than Cook. He needs some help. Whether it's one of the receivers stepping up or one of the other tight ends, he needs something. So the pressure is definitely on him. And let's not forget, they lost to New England on Sunday Night Football a couple weeks back. So they got to get back in that race, win the division first and foremost. So a lot of pressure's on him. Herbert never won a playoff game. And you always say, okay, he throws for 5,000 yards and he's got all those weapons. But the offensive line's beat up, Q. So it's tough on him, but he's got to step up and win some big games and get to the playoffs and win a game as well.
Yeah, I thought you brought up some good points today on back your play regarding Tampa and New England. You don't like that matchup for the Patriots on the road against Tampa because of that Todd Bowles defense.
Yeah, and Todd Bowles, he loves playing against young quarterbacks because he's going to disguise some things and he's going to have some blitzes. Uh, you know, Winfield Jr. is playing very well in the back. He's getting a lot of interceptions. Levante David's hanging in there. So their defense is very competitive. New England as well may have some trouble running the football. I think it's going to be Henderson going because Stevenson is injured. So, maybe they can get the ball to Hunter Henry, and Diggs has got to have a good game against this Bucs defense that's kind of beat up in the secondary. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, but I think in the end, the Bucs are better than people think, and I think they're going to show them.
More likely to happen. We've seen the last of Kyler Murray, or Tua takes his final snap with the Miami Dolphins this weekend.
Wow. That's a tough one, Q, because I think both those quarterbacks are on a hot seat. It's crazy because they make a ton of money. Both of them make over $45 million a year. And it's just like, okay, a lot of times you say follow the money, but a lot of these coaches are desperate, to save their own job. McDaniel as well as Gannon. So Kyler Murray, first and foremost, they play better with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, the team is more fluid. You see Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of breaking out. And, yeah, they put him on IR and they kind of step back from him. So I could see a situation where Brissett keeps playing well that they say, Murray, we're shutting you down, and we kind of step away from you and eat some money out of that contract, like happened with Russell Wilson with Denver. And then Tua, yeah, he's got a lot of interceptions, 11 interceptions. McDaniel's hanging on by a thread. They already saw Greer get um, let go, and they traded away a bunch of guys. So they're kind of waving a white flag. But you wonder if they're going to try to bring him back and then work around that contract with a new coach.
What'd you make of the Jets and some of their moves? I mean, they're acquiring draft capital. Does that give Aaron Glenn a little wiggle room? I've kind of gone back and forth. I've been told 2 years max. Is it possible they blow it up after 1 year because of the draft capital? I thought, they had they they got back a lot for what they gave up. They got back a lot in return. I thought A+ moves, right, and they fleeced Dallas and they fleeced the Colts, so they got some draft capital. But what were your overall thoughts on the moves that they made?
Yeah, Q, they clearly are like, all right, they're in rebuilding mode and they're working for next season. Obviously, Justin Fields' experiment has not worked out. They're going to start gearing up probably for that, I think, 2027 draft, Q, to get their quarterback of the future. And all these picks that they have, they're going to be able to move up and down the board if they need to. So there's some tough times coming because, yeah, this roster's clearly depleted. Malchi, the new GM there, he's got a lot of work to do, but he was brought in with Aaron Glenn together. So everybody I've talked to said Woody Johnson wants the two of them to have some time to develop and initiate their architect plan. We'll see how it works out, but yeah, they're bare bones at this point. It's going to be a tough rest of the way for the Jets.
Steelers are 5-3. They snapped that 2-game slide. They had the bad loss against Cincinnati. They had the bad loss against Green Bay. 2 games they could have won, and then they come back and they beat the Indianapolis Colts. If they go on the road and beat the Chargers, do we sit there and say, okay, they're not as much of a fraud as maybe we thought they were, or at least I said they were?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game because this is a prove-it situation for both quarterbacks and teams, and the Steelers, their calling card obviously is going to be that defense. They need to get pressure on Herbert. The offensive line of the Chargers is extremely beat up, and you started seeing Watt and Highsmith kick it in the gear last week, and they got 6 turnovers. So, yeah, whatever team kind of comes out of this, you're going to say, okay, they're kind of for real. But Aaron Rodgers at his age, you always got to question, can he still get it done? In the running game with Warren's kind of average at best. So big game for the Steelers. I know I picked the Chargers in this one, but it's going to be a close game.
Chargers laying 2.5. All right, Monday Night Football. Eagles off the bye against Green Bay. We talked at length on Back Your Play regarding this game. Green Bay's laying 1.5. The Packers are a good team at home. Eagles are a good team on the road. Starting to get their offense kind of in gear. The Giants defense will help you out in that regard. But I think, to me, the difference in this game is the fact that the Eagles have not been able to successfully get to the quarterback, right? Just the pass rush isn't there. I threw it out to you earlier. Josh Sweat, 7 sacks with Arizona. And you look at all these pass rushers on the Eagles, 6 combined, right? And then you got Jordan Love that can improvise and make plays with his legs. I think that will be the difference in this game. Are you looking at this game as a little more wide open? And where do you think the game's going to be won and lost?
Yeah, Q. Early on, I was leaning towards the Packers, but they laid such an egg last week against the Panthers, and it was at home in Titletown. So,
Yeah.
that home field advantage is not what it used to. The
Nope.
Eagles are coming off a bye. Sirianni's 4-0 off a bye. So, he usually has the Eagles well prepared. Obviously, you're going to watch that injury for Saquon. Is that groin healthy? The offensive line for the Eagles has been beat up, but they're going to have everybody except their center. Jurgens Toth is going to step in there, and I think they're going to probably try to run behind Lane Johnson and attack a smallish Packers front. Obviously, the Packers have Gary and they have Micah Parsons that's been a thorn in the Eagles' side. The Eagles have got to block them, and I'm expecting a back and forth game. It could come down to the kicking game. Brandon McManus has been a little inconsistent for them, and Elliott's done a nice job for the Eagles. So I think the Eagles off a bye win a close game, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers had a statement and said, all right, last week we're putting that behind us.
I'm trying to look at some of these games where I think the way the lines kind of play out, where a team would potentially be on an upset alert. I mean, not Jacksonville, the Texans, Arizona obviously is going to Brissett. Seattle, you mentioned the Rams. Seattle's a real good team. I just people have um, said that I'm too high on Darnold. I'm overly high on Darnold. Now, I know they've got some issues, some of their wide receivers. I think Cooper Cup's a little banged up. I think their tight end is questionable as well. I love the fact that Sam Darnold's really been able to resurrect his career and he's playing like an MVP. And I know people are waiting for the other shoe to drop with Sam Darnold, but I look at this team and not only do they have playmakers all over, they can run the football and they play really good defense too. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. Like they get to the quarterback. I mean, they have 27, 28, 30 sacks already, but they get them in bunches and they're timely sacks. We talked about the Rams potentially competing against the Eagles in the NFC. Is Seattle a team that you say you certainly don't want to have to go on the road and play them, but can you see them going into Philly and knocking off the Eagles?
They have enough pieces there, Q, to compete with teams like the Eagles. The biggest thing with Seattle, obviously, is their offensive line, which they've been tinkering with for a number of years. They have Cross, and then the rest of the guys are kind of work in progress. So the Seattle can run the football with anybody. They got Charbonnet, they have Walker, the tight end Barner's coming along, and then JSN is playing in that offensive player of the year level. He's at 948 yards already, Q, almost 1,000. And Darnold, a lot of people are questioning him, but he's coming in and he's cool, calm. And other than like one or two games, I can think of the Houston game where he didn't play well. He's played extremely well and efficient at quarterback position.
The Tampa game, I mean, the pick was off the player's helmet. I mean, it is what it is. It was unfortunate. I feel as though this weekend, too, we're going to see some separation when it comes to the MVP race with some of these quarterbacks. I really do. And whether it's Goff, whether it's Stafford, Prescott in Dallas has to bye. I can't really throw Herbert in a mix. I'll tell you a game that's interesting from this standpoint. If Daniel Jones goes out and has an 18 of 38 for a buck 67 and a two-pick game, I'm telling you right now, they're going to really start to clamor. I mean, look, they lost Buckner. That hurts obviously the defense. If they can't get it going with the ground game and it falls on Daniel Jones, I've watched more times than not, he can't get it done, right? He just can't. I mean, he needs that offense to be elevated through that ground game. So if he goes out and he struggles on the road in Germany against the Falcons and they've lost two in a row after pretty much dominating the first month plus 2 months of the season, I'm starting to think it's going to be some panic time here in Indianapolis.
Well, the Colts got to guard against this. This is a letdown situation. You're traveling, as you said, Q. They got to treat this as a business trip because the Falcons are scrappy, as inconsistent as they are. You saw what they did against Buffalo when they have their mind right. And then Bijan Robinson can run the football with anybody. You talk about Buckner's injury. That's huge for the Colts. And they're bringing in Sauce Gardner. Is he ready to get acclimated to the situation? So a lot of moving pieces with here. Daniel Jones cannot play like last week for them. He was terrible. He looked like Giants Daniel Jones, who they got rid of, with all those turnovers. So big game for the Colts, and we'll see if they're prepared. I tend to think Shane Steichen's going to have his team ready to play this football game, and the Colts are just the Falcons are just too inconsistent.
They're very inconsistent. You can't figure out what the hell they're doing week in and week out. Cincy, Chiefs, Titans, Dallas Cowboys have a bye. Anything else kind of stand out this weekend, week 10 for you?
Well, you talked about that Rams team. This is a huge game. The Rams going to the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners have really clicked with Mac Jones, and that's going to be interesting to see once Purdy comes back from that toe injury. But I'm interested to see, are the Rams ready to make that step forward, take total control of this division, and can they shut down Christian McCaffrey? Because that was just such a big turnover last time, and Mac Jones and the Niners were able to take advantage of it. So I'm looking forward to that game.
Yeah, I think you're going to see this weekend some of these teams we're talking about if they're really as legit. As crazy as it sounds, so I look at the Bears and then I look at the Giants and I'm like, okay, I feel the Giants are kind of where the Bears were last season. Young quarterback, believe you have the franchise quarterback, some bad losses, and it's kind of made the season go sideways. Now, I brought this up earlier to the chagrin of some Giant fans where you had Eberflus, you had Ryan Poles. They got rid of Eberflus. They kept Ryan Poles. They brought in Ben Johnson. So now you got the head coach in place with the quarterback. They can run the football. They can play a little defense, and they're 5-3. It doesn't have to be pretty. The Giants, we don't know what they're going to do with the GM, but it pretty much feels as though that Brian Daboll is going to be out at the end of the season. And you know this as much as I do. When we covered that Eagles team, Andy Reid's last year, when the players started to tune him out, it was just a matter of time. And they lost the regular season finale 42-7 with the Giants. You knew he was done. The Giants, we we don't see stable franchises typically pull the plug mid-season unless it really gets ugly, right? And it's been a rarity that we've seen that with the Giants. Point is, if they go out on Sunday and they lose 38-10 and they're a no-show, there's a possibility he could be fired on Monday. Those reports came out they wanted to fire him after the Denver loss. But I also believe if they go out and they play competitive and they win a football game, which is very hard to do in the NFL, at least for 1 week, the noise dies down. It's not going to save his job. It's just not. I said this on the air after the Denver loss. That was pretty much that's it. You can blame the defensive coordinator, the players. I understand all that, but it is interesting how you look at where the Bears were last year, where they are this year, and where the Giants are right now. It reminds me of kind of where the Bears were last season.
I agree with you. And the big thing last season was, should Eberflus have been brought back? And is he the guy to work with the young quarterback and develop
That's
him?
right. Stability. That's what they want.
And he wasn't. And they obviously, and they were on Hard Knocks too, Q. So cameras were front and center, and you just saw how that team was built incorrectly. And the Giants were on Hard Knocks as well last summer, and you saw their dysfunction. And you know, the Mara family is one of the proud first families in the National Football League. And if the Giants get embarrassed on national TV and, it just becomes an ugly situation, yeah, I think they could pull the plug on Dable. Now, I think eventually they're just going to let him ride this thing out. The bye is week 14 for the Giants, and it could be around there. And the fans have had enough by then. And the key thing was your question. Do they bring back Joe Shane too, or did they get rid of both of them at the same time? Because it's hard to build for the draft when you don't have a GM that late.
So let me ask you a question though. If you know that you're going to be fired from your job and you still got to go in there, like, I mean, it's the worst kept secret. He's got to know when he wakes up in the morning, no matter what he does, he's gone. Like, you can't bring him back. You still have to go out and be a professional. Like, that's the hard part. That's the challenge. And what that means, I have to motivate these guys. Now, once that motivation vanishes and the players start making business decisions, then all bets are off. But again, you covered the NFL for a long time. Like, it's got to be a tough spot for him to be in, to just have to go out there knowing that no matter what he does, he's going to be out of a job.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. And as you said, professional coach, he's getting paid a lot of money to kind of suck it up and keep trudging through this thing. Maybe it'll get better, but I've seen it so often where a coach has lost the locker room, it just does not get any better. It gets worse, and the losses get worse. And you're right. After a certain point, after where we're getting, we're in week 10, and then when you get around week 12 and your team is just limping home, a lot of those guys do start making business decisions. Oh, my hamstring's a little dinged up. I can't practice. I can't play in the game. You know what I mean? So
I wanted to ask you one more question regarding that, though. Can you, well, you know what? Because everyone's making fun of the hat today with the Rocky hat. If you remember Rocky 3, when Stallone and Carl Weathers, when Rocky and Apollo Creed step into the ring the last time, right? You owe me a favor, right? 2 seconds is hard for me, right? With the knockout. And I think I remember Stallone basically said, you taught me everything I need to know. And Carl Weathers said, you fight great, but I'm a great fighter, which was a
Right.
great line. So, do you believe you can be a good coach, but not a good head coach?
Oh, that's a great point, Q. And we've seen it so often. A guy that I followed and admired, Romeo Crennel. What a great defensive mind. I mean, did so much great work with the Giants teams, and then you know he was okay in Spurs. Kansas City, he did an okay job there. He was an interim, then they gave him the head coaching job, but he just struggled, like in Houston and a bunch of other
Yeah.
places, as being the main guy, and it just happens a lot that some guys are not meant to be a head coach.
Yeah, Cleveland, right? And they drafted poorly. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. All right, brother. Did you see the man reading the room? Cornell was a brilliant. Yeah, some of these guys are. I asked you this, and forgive me if I didn't.
It's all
With
right.
the coaches now that are the nine that advanced in the Hall of Fame voting process: Coughlin, Belichick, Shanahan was one of them. Schottenheimer was one of them. Chuck Knox was one of them. I believe, look, Belichick's a shoe in, right? We can just,
Yeah.
I also think Coughlin is a Hall of Fame head coach. Two Super Bowl wins, took Jacksonville, young franchise, beat Denver, took them to an AFC championship, long sustained success. Is there a barometer that you look at with these coaches? You have to be a multiple Super Bowl winner. Do you have to win, 200 games? Because I am curious to get your thoughts on Coughlin, Schottenheimer, Shanahan, and Noel.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them should get consideration, Q. And there's a couple things that you talked about. You have to win multiple Super Bowls to me to be a coach that people are saying,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, to be to say you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
you
yeah.
have Schottenheimer who has 200 wins. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And a
Never
lot
got
of
over the
people
hump, though. Never got over the hump. Some good
exactly.
teams.
So it's like close but no cigar, and it's just tough. But when you're in those rooms, and I've talked to the guys at both Pro Football Hall of Fame, do you have to have somebody be able to sell that resume? And I think, yeah, win totals are nice, but championships speak of legacy. And some of those guys you talked about, they don't have that postseason success at like some of their contemporaries.
Coughlin won two Super Bowls, 12 years as Giant head coach, 170, 150, 531 winning percentage. Remember, a lot of those teams started 6-2, 5-3, and they wilted. 12-7 in the postseason. You had a franchise Hall of Fame quarterback in Manning, right? Um, and obviously, you beat the Patriots twice. That there's a little cachet with that. Marty had great teams in the 80s with the Browns and Kozar and Biner and all those teams. They never got through Denver. And then obviously with Kansas City, you know, conservative football. Now, Chuck Knox to me is interesting because again, if you're, old school like we are, here's a guy that was a lifer as a line coach in a Juniata college back in the 60s, and then finally got a gig. Now, he was head coach with the Rams, the Bills, but he really made his bones with Seattle. And remember that first year in Seattle, 83, that's when you had the original AFC West. He took him to the AFC Championship against the Raiders. Raiders won. Raiders go on and beat the then Washington Redskins in the Super Bowl 38-9. But Knox won, I think, 186 games, 190 total, 7-11 in the postseason. Do you look at him as a Hall of Fame head coach or just a really good head coach?
He's close, Q. He's in the Hall, very good, but unfortunately, not having that championship on his resume might keep him out until some of these other guys go in. Maybe he's a Veterans Committee guy later or something like that. But yeah, I think he falls just a little bit short.
Now, lastly, what about Shanahan? Shanahan, does he automatically get in because of the two wins back to back? Do we also have to look at the last several years with Washington, or is that just kind of a moot point? He won 170 games. He was 8-6 in the postseason, but he did win back to back Super Bowls.
Yeah, I'd have to say Mike Shanahan. It's an in, and he was also an innovator as well in terms of offense.
Correct.
Another one, he's Bill Walsh disciples,
That's
and
right. The tree.
he needs to get his just due. I think, yeah, with those two championships, it solidified his candidacy.
Yeah, that Parcells, that Bill Walsh tree is just, it's really fascinating, right? I mean, Shanahan was hired as an offensive coordinator under Seifert, and then they won that Super Bowl because that was George Seifert's first year in '89 after Bill Walsh retired when they beat Cincy in '88. I mean,
Yeah.
but so this is just so let me just throw that. I know I'm holding
Mhm.
you for a
No,
little
that's
longer, but um, I just think this is remarkable. So this is, so you're talking about the Bill Walsh coaching tree, right?
yeah,
Mike
Brian.
White,
Yep,
Ray
Brian.
Rhodes.
Brian
Yep,
Billick.
yep.
Um,
Well, it breaks down. So White,
Dennis Green.
yep,
Yep.
Seifert, Holmgren, Ray Rhodes, Mike White, and then from there you get Jim Fossil, John Fox, O'Callahan, McCarthy, Peyton, Dick Duran, Tony Dungy, Brian Billick, Jack Fisher, Kubiak. Oh my God, it's it's unreal. Like I this is going to sound. We always sit there and say um, that Belichick is the greatest head coach of all time. But you can really sit in a room and make a case for Bill Walsh because of the tree and what came from Bill Walsh and the fact that he was an innovator of the West Coast offense, get the ball out quickly, the slant 7-yard hitch, and here we go with the streaky wide receiver. And the fact that, again, Bill Walsh also won multiple Super Bowls, right? I mean, in '81, the genius of Bill Walsh, you're up 21 to nothing against Cincinnati in the Pontiac Silverdome. You're letting Cincinnati basically get the middle of the field. But the idea was, hey, don't let them get out of bounds and stop the clock. We'll give up the 20 to 20. Innovative, right? So he wins in '81. '85, they were ridiculous, right? '88, they were ridiculous. Is it on retire? He wins in '89. That's a fourth championship. So I believe you can make a case and say Bill Walsh is the greatest NFL head coach, not Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I'd put him up there, and a lot of people say Shula because the number of wins that he has, and he has the record. But a lot of that, I think, is longevity. I think Walsh was just such an innovator, Q, and a teacher, and he got his guys rallied, ready to play and win. And the big thing for them was beating the Cowboys. They had to get past Tom Landry, and he had the game plan, and he had the quarterback to execute it. So. Yeah, I would say he's up there. Obviously, everybody's going to say with Belichick, he had Brady, and you know, it was a little easier for him. So, yeah, I definitely say Walsh is up there in terms of you know Mount
one of the
Rushmore.
one of the greatest forgotten plays in NFL history. After the 49ers score the touchdown on the catch, right?
Mhm.
Cowboys get pretty good field position, and Danny White hits Drew Pearson right in the seam, and he's about to break it, and Eric Wright makes a shoestring tackle. Drew Pearson was gone. Like, imagine if Dallas wins, because they went to 4 straight NFC championships. Maybe we don't get the 49ers uh, dynasty. All right, you'll have your last word on this one. Why is Q looking like Gangs of New York extra today? I mean, uh,
I don't really watch the show. So,
you never saw that movie, Gangs of New York?
yeah, I saw the movie, but I
Oh,
thought he was talking about there's a TV show
oh,
too.
is there really? I
Yeah.
just I went through. I finished the show Task about the DEA.
Okay, my wife's been watching. I've been watching that one.
Excellent. And then Mayor. Do you watch Mayor of Kingstown?
Oh, I love that show. Renner's incredible. A lot of
Oh,
good in that. Yeah.
he's fantastic, man. The acting is phenomenal. They got some really good actors. It's funny too because I was binge watching a while ago. I think I told you Oz, the show about the prisoners in
Oh,
jail. Fantastic show. So many of the actors all went on to play in Law and Order SVU. There's like 7 of them. And like it's almost like that. We're talking about the coaching tree, but it's almost like that tree of some of these shows. But um, I might start watching that again. I'm gonna probably binge Breaking Bad. I'm gonna go back to The Wire as well But I love Mayor of Kingstown. I love Task. And then another show. Did you watch Lioness?
Yes, yeah. Zoe Salata is very
Oh,
good. Yeah, a
what
lot of
about
good action in that one as
what,
well.
what about the Terminal List?
The Terminal List. I don't know that one. I didn't watch
Watch.
that.
So it's one season. It's unbelievable. It's about Navy SEALs. Great actors in
Okay.
that. Taylor Kitsch is in that. Chris Pratt, and then follow that up with the Terminal List. Um, hold on, I got to pull it up. Terminal List. It's Rogue, Dark Wolf. Terminal List, Dark Wolf. Watch that.
Okay.
One season. You can bang that out this weekend. Honestly, you don't even have to worry about watching the NFL on Sunday.
Oh,
In
ho,
fact,
ho, ho.
don't even worry.
That'll be what Saturdays are for.
Yeah, college football, right? Go and watch. Go. You don't have to worry about the London game, but yeah, Terminal List, um, and yeah, Lioness is fantastic. Now, do you watch Bosch or Bosch Legacy or The Lincoln Lawyer?
No, I have not watched any of them.
So all on, I believe, Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And then I have to finish. I'm almost through the current season of Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone. Do you watch that?
I do watch that. It's Stallone. Sometimes an 80-year-old dude beating somebody else
Yeah, I
is a
mean,
little much, but
I-
he's good. He's very
yeah, yeah,
strategic.
yeah. No, he's
I like
definitely good. I mean, sometimes the acting and the writing is but yeah, I'm still gonna watch it. So
Yeah, no,
that's all right. That's
I like his crew on that show too.
yes, yes, yeah. So that's your homework assignment for Saturday. So all right, brother. Every Monday. Lloyd Vance is Insider Football, 8 to 9, SR 1029 FM The Game, and he joins me. We dropped a new edition of Back Your Play. That's Amazon, Spotify, iTunes, Podcaster, Podchaser, whatever. You just follow when we tweet that sucker out. You guys can get a lot of in depth analysis. We gave you some picks and plays. And also, our one prop that we both liked this weekend was James Cook over 83 rushing yards. So, all right, brother. Busy weekend, college football Saturday. Obviously, the NFL on Sunday. Week 10 is among us. We will do it again next week. Always appreciate you, pal. Thank you.
All right, thanks for having me on, Blake.
All right, there you have it. My man, Lloyd Vance. Yes, Sarge says Mayor of Kingston is unbelievable. Q, have you ever watched City on a Hill? Yes. I don't know. City on a Hill, for some reason, I think they canceled it. Really good show. I mean, Kevin Bacon. How do you not like Kevin Bacon? Kevin Bacon's in everything. Name me a show that you can't connect the actor to Kevin Bacon. You can do it. It's that 6 Degrees. He's all over the place. Lioness, fantastic. All right, so I gave you the picks for the weekend. We gave you the plays. We highlighted every game on BYP. So just to kind of reiterate, I'll give you a little quick synopsis before we get out of here. I know we're a little over 6. That's okay. We mentioned the Falcons and the Colts. Colts laying 6.5, totals 47.5. This is kind of the game you want to see if Daniel Jones does not revert back to his bad ways. Not touching this game. I think you get a good effort from the Giants, but I think defensively the Bears are going to be able to move the football against that secondary, score some points. I can see this being a 31-17, 31-21 kind of game. Bills on the road, they should wax Buffalo, lay in 9.5 in this one. You might see Tua benched in this one if he really struggles. Ravens and the Vikings, kind of my look but don't touch, even though the Ravens have a very favorable 4 or 5 game stretch where they can actually get back to 500. Browns and the Jets, your only play here might be the total. Play the under 37.5. New England and the Bucks. Bucks are laying 2.5 in this one. New England 7-2, 4-0 on the road. May looks like a big time franchise quarterback. See how he reacts to that Todd Bowles defense. Saints and the Panthers not touching. Jacksonville and Texans not touching. I do like Seattle laying the 6.5 at home. I think their defense is going to cause some turnovers and get the Brissett. The 49ers will keep it close against the Rams. I do believe the Rams win the game, but I do believe that the 49ers keep this game close going into the fourth quarter. Lions and the Commanders, 7.5. I'd rather catch it at 7, but you got the hook right there. Bad spot for Washington. All the injuries really come at a bad time. Steelers and the Chargers. Chargers at home. it's a game where if you want to take the Chargers serious, if you're a Chargers fan, you win this game. And then Monday night, I already told you I like the Packers. It's not even a spite pick, but I like the Packers laying 1.5 in this one. All right, as we start to wrap it up on a Friday, don't forget, as I mentioned, new edition of BYP dropped. Also, Overseas Dimes will be dropped on the YouTube channel. We are traveling all weekend long. We will be back in the saddle on Tuesday. If I can do something Sunday, we will try, but we will be back on the air on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. So definitely keep it locked in. Want to thank our sponsors as always. Get Ready with Tea, Fresh Roasted Coffee, 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. Jersey Shore Breaks, Play It Again Sports, 2 locations in South Jersey, and 3 Brooks Bourbon. Good stuff with the comments. Appreciate John Bueller from Fanside at Lloyd Vance from Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. Got college football, you got the NBA, and you got the NFL on Sunday. We'll recap everything come Tuesday. You guys have a wonderful sports weekend. As always, be safe, be sound. Thanks for tuning into this edition of On Cue. I'm Rich Quinones. Hasta luego, mi día.